Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Is Shelly Finkel trying to rewrite history over how the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight got made? More specifically, the where and when it was going to be, because he's made some comments that are deeply suspect. And the comments to Boxing Social, they appear like Finkel's trying to sweep under the rug the fact that there was a delay of well over a month in announcing the date and venue. Finkel's statements also directly contradict what his fighter Deontay Wilder is saying, and it also contradicts what Frank Warren has been saying as well. So I'll get to everybody's statements, Finkel's first, and some thoughts along the way, because it is not adding up. After the London presser for Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, Finkel was interviewed by Boxing Social, which questioned him on the no venue and date being a sticking point for a Wilder and Joshua fight. But for the Wilder and Fury fight, it was made without those two things. And Shelly Finkel's response was, there was no sticking point, we knew what the date was, we knew where we were going, we just didn't want to announce it yet. It wasn't that we had a problem. That interview was done on October the 1st. One day earlier, Deontay Wilder had sat down with IFL TV's Kugan Cassius. At about the 2.5 minute mark, he was asked if he knew since the Fury fight was announced that it was always going to happen. His response, yeah, for sure. That's why we wasn't worrying about where's the date, where's the venue. I'm like, chill out, be calm, it's coming. You know, one of the reasons we didn't have a date and a venue is because we had a lot of other venues in competition. Everybody wanted this fight. You know, this is one of the biggest fights in the world. Who wouldn't want to host this? And a little later on in the same interview, and I quote, he said, we had to keep changing dates. We didn't want to. So just keep that in mind for a second. If we go back to September the 6th, Frank Warren sits down with IFL TV, again Kugan Cassius, and I did report these comments at the time. So Frank Warren says, at about the 1 minute 30 mark, we've had to work out a mutual date for the TV companies and obviously negotiating with venues. There's quite a few venues that want the fight, and people in the States who are working with Shelly Finkel and Al Heyman are working on that. And he also added later on, the fight is on, and the date is being finalised as I've just said. So remember, this fight was announced in the ring on August the 19th in Belfast after Tyson Fury's win over Francesco Pianetta. Shelly Finkel would have us believe from his statements to Boxing Social that at that point they had their date, they had their venue. Yet in September, Frank Warren confirms they are still working on a mutual date for broadcasters and negotiations are continuing with venues. And Wilder, one day before Finkel's Boxing Social comments, confirms that the date kept changing and they had a lot of competition with venues. Now someone tell me, who is telling the truth here and who's not? It cannot be both. I repeat, it cannot be both. And I'm more inclined to believe Wilder and Warren, as Finkel's assertions, they just don't seem credible. But if we are to believe Finkel, that would mean Warren and Wilder are lying. And again, what for? Why would they? I'm not sure what Finkel thinks he can actually gain by trying to attempt to rewrite history and finesse what actually happened. Not only that, if the relevant date and venue was locked in way back when, as Finkel seems to indicate, then Finkel had Frank Warren out on an island on his own, fronting the media, trying to deflect, trying to defend why the details weren't announced. Remember, he had said, we're going to announce these details in the week after the Pianetta fight, and it never came. He got a lot of crap for that. Surely it would make sense for Frank Warren to have said at the time, that the details, yes, we've locked them all in, and we will be announcing them in due course. Rather than what he did say, which was, we're still working on a date with broadcasters, and we're still negotiating with venues. That is what he was saying. It's indisputable. So if what Finkel is saying is true, he was deliberately letting Frank Warren take a hit in the media, on social media, taking a hit to his credibility. And that doesn't really sort of seem like that is a nice thing to do to your friends if what Finkel is saying is true. That's exactly what he let happen. But I don't believe it is true. To me, what Finkel is saying, it just doesn't gel with Warren and Wilder. It doesn't add up, and clearly both statements, the respective statements from Wilder and Warren, they are directly contrary to what Finkel is saying. Somebody is lying. It just doesn't make sense why they would be doing this anyway. The fact that they've now got a fight announced, the details are in place. What is the gain for Finkel to try dispute what happened and then attempt to rewrite history on the venue and date stuff? It doesn't make any sense. So for me, Finkel has been well and truly caught red-handed, hand in the cookie jar, well and truly. And he looks a little stupid for having made the comments that he has, because it contradicts Deontay Wilder, it contradicts Frank Warren. These are his business partners after all. But not only that, in the same Boxing Social interview, Shelly Finkel has denied they ever accepted a deal to fight Anthony Joshua. And that's another curious statement for a number of reasons. He was asked, now Eddie said you accepted that offer, now you're not going to accept that offer. Could you just tell me why that is, if it is indeed true? Finkel responded to Boxing Social saying, it's not true, we did not accept that offer. That's why the fight didn't happen. It had no rematch clause, it had no address, it had no stadium, and that was then. Now, many people are going to take issue with that statement because Wilder did in fact agree to terms, and ESPN reported at the time, it was the first to report it, these statements from Shelly Finkel, and this was back in July. So Finkel was quoted as saying, we have agreed to the terms that Eddie has put out for us for a fight in the UK. Deontay has accepted his terms to fight in the UK. Deontay sent an email to Joshua on Sunday night, and I sent one Monday to Barry Hearn and Eddie telling them that we officially accept the offer to fight under the terms they gave us and to send us the contract. So that certainly sounds like accepting a deal on the face of it, right? Especially the part where he says we officially accept the offer. But I think what is going on here with this comment is Finkel is effectively saying because the contract wasn't signed, that they didn't officially accept the deal. That's what I think he is meaning in this circumstance, which, depending on how you look at it, it is also correct. But hearing his statement that he didn't accept a deal, but having said that they officially accept the offer, it is hard to marry up those two statements. And if Finkel is trying to finesse the situation a bit, he's really dancing on the head of a pin. And I'm sure some are going to say Finkel's been caught out in another lie over this assertion, no offer was accepted. He actually said, we officially accept the offer. But I want to come back to the question, what does Shelly Finkel have to gain by moving the goalposts on what he's saying? At the very least, he's being extremely economical with the truth. At the worst, he's been caught out in a lie, potentially two lies. After all, it's only taken me 5 seconds to fact-check what he said, and lots of people are up in arms about these comments. They're going, hang on, this doesn't really gel with what we recollect, or with what was said at the time. And certainly these comments, they do look dubious, and at the worst he has been lying here. And I'm sure if he is challenged again on these comments that he will provide some further context if pushed to try back up what he was saying. He's a lawyer after all, he's pretty good with his words, but in this case, yeah, especially the date and venue stuff, it doesn't add up. And it does seem unnecessary for him to be trying to create a new narrative around the date, around the venue, especially when it runs counter to his fighter and fellow promoter Frank Warren. It's all a bit bizarre really, especially when Deontay Wilder one day before is saying we had to change the date several times and lots of venues were competing to be in the running to host the fight. That doesn't sound like the date and venue were locked in when the fight was announced on August the 19th. Just my 2 cents, give me yours. Drop a comment, loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared, that's boxing_squared. I'm out. They're complicit with the hype, the bluster, the bullshit. Yet there was no indication of really how good he was because the guys he were facing were trash. It's another stain on the WBA's reputation.